You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 8th part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Rumi leaned in, taking the offered bite of steak. The flavor was richer than she expected, but it wasn't the taste that made her heart jump, it was how close she was to him, how casually he smiled, like this was the most natural thing in the world. She chewed, swallowed, then laughed softly. It's good, she admitted, setting her fork down. But honestly, I think you just wanted an excuse to feed me. Naruto nearly choked on his water, waving his hand. What? No. I mean, well, maybe a little. He rubbed the back of his neck, ears turning pink. The banter settled into something gentler. Between sips and small bites, their conversation slipped out without effort. Rumi's voice softened as she toyed with her napkin. When I was younger, I always thought if I could just hide enough, no one would see me. No one would expect anything. But then she hesitated, her eyes flicking to him. You make me feel like hiding is the last thing I should do. Naruto blinked, his grin faltering into something quieter, more real. Rumi, I spent so much time thinking I was too broken for anyone to look at twice. And then there's you. Smart, strong, way out of my league. And you're sitting here with me. She smiled, a little shy but warm. Maybe I like broken things. They shine in ways people don't expect. Naruto chuckled, shaking his head. You're the one shining. I'm just trying to keep up. They shared another bite, salmon for him, steak for her, but it wasn't really about the food anymore. The candlelight caught the curve of her smile, and for once, Naruto wasn't thinking about storms or scars or the fight he'd just lost. He was only thinking about her. Rumi set her fork down, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face as the waiter cleared their plates. The candlelight flickered between them, softening the world into just the two of them. She tilted her head, studying him. So how does it feel? She asked quietly. Being a chunin now. Naruto leaned back in his chair, exhaling like the weight of the whole month finally loosened from his chest. Honestly, I'm happy. It feels good, you know. Moving up in the ranks. Proving to everyone I'm not just some kid with scars and loud dreams. He scratched at his cheek, his grin turning a little sheepish. Feels like the first step. Like maybe I really belong up there with the others. Rumi's heart ached at the honesty in his voice. You do belong, she said softly. You've always belonged. Naruto gave her a look, earnest, grateful, then leaned forward, elbows on the table. What about you? Huntrix. Where does that stand? Rumi's gaze flickered, her fingers brushing the rim of her glass. Celine says 2 years. If we keep training hard, if we stay focused, we'll be ready. It's not fast, but it's solid. And when that day comes, we'll stand with everyone else. No shadows. No doubts. Naruto nodded slowly, letting that settle. 2 years, huh? Guess that means we both got a lot of work ahead. Her lips curved into a smile, small but certain. We'll get there. You as a hunter, me as a sealer. Side by side. Naruto's chest warmed at the words. For all the storms he carried, for all the fire he fought against in that moment, he believed her. Rumi's words lingered in the candlelight, steady and sure. Across the table, Naruto reached out almost without thinking, his hand brushing hers before settling over it. Her fingers tensed for a heartbeat, then softened, curling around his. Neither spoke right away. They didn't need to. The warmth of their joined hands said enough, a quiet promise that no matter the storms ahead, they'd face them together. Naruto gave her hand a gentle squeeze, his grin softer now, less boyish and more real. Side by side, he repeated. Rumi smiled, her cheeks glowing in the low light. Always. The noise of the restaurant, the clatter of dishes, the murmur of voices, all of it blurred to nothing. For that moment it was just the two of them, hand in hand, carrying hope into the years ahead. The waiter returned with a single plate, a delicate slice of chocolate cake crowned with fresh cream and a scattering of raspberries. The candlelight glinted off the drizzle of syrup that traced the rim of the porcelain, making it look almost too perfect to touch. Naruto grinned. One dessert, huh? Guess I'll have to fight you for it. Rumi shook her head, smirking despite the warmth rising in her cheeks. Please. You'd lose. The first bite went to her, small and careful. She tried to keep her composure, but the rich sweetness caught her by surprise, and a tiny laugh escaped before she swallowed. Naruto leaned forward eagerly. That good? She offered the fork, still holding it steady between them. His eyes widened a little, then softened. He leaned in, took the bite, and chewed with a grin tugging at his lips. Okay, maybe I'd lose on purpose. Rumi blushed, rolling her eyes but smiling all the same. They traded the fork back and forth, each bite slower than the last, as if stretching the moment itself. By the time the last raspberry was gone, the cake was almost an afterthought. It wasn't about the dessert anymore. It was about the way their hands brushed, the way their laughter fell soft and private despite the bustle of the restaurant. Naruto settled the bill with quiet ease, slipping his card to the waiter before Rumi could even think to reach for hers. He stood and offered his hand. She took it without hesitation, her palm warm against his, and they stepped out into the night together. The city glowed around them, lamplight painting long shadows, neon humming faintly, laughter drifting from passing crowds. They giggled as they walked, not at anything important but at everything: the way the waiter nearly spilled the water, Naruto's exaggerated pout when she stole the last bite of dessert, how her heels clicked faster when he teased her. The kind of laughter that meant nothing and everything at once. It wasn't long before their feet carried them to the fountain. The same fountain where, weeks before, they'd kissed for the first time. The water still glowed under soft lamps, casting a silver sheen on the rippling surface. Naruto froze when he realized, then grinned. Here again, huh? Rumi's cheeks flushed, her smile shy but knowing. Guess it's fate. They sat down on the same stone ledge, shoulders brushing, knees knocking together. The memory of that first kiss hung thick in the air, every ripple in the water echoing it. Naruto swished his hand through the pool just as he had before, sending ripples across the surface. She leaned closer, just like last time. Funny, he murmured, voice low, last time we sat here, everything else disappeared. Her chest tightened. It still does. And then they kissed, soft at first, sweet, like the memory they were replaying. But soon it deepened, their lips molding together with urgency, with all the weeks of stolen glances and unspoken words behind them. She looped her arms around his neck, his hands pulling her tight against him, and the world around them blurred again. They broke only to breathe, laughter slipping between kisses, until they simply held each other, foreheads pressed close, the fountain's glow wrapping them in their own private world. For the second time at this fountain, the rest of the world ceased to matter. This time, though, they weren't tentative strangers on the edge of something new. They were already falling madly, irreversibly in love. They lingered by the fountain, lost in each other's arms, until the night grew cooler and the city began to quiet. Neither wanted to leave, but eventually Naruto pulled back just enough to brush a thumb along Rumi's cheek. We should probably head back, he whispered, though the reluctance in his voice made her smile. Hand in hand, they walked down the lamplit street until the limo pulled up, its headlights sweeping across the pavement. The driver stepped out, holding the door, but Naruto waved him off with a grin. He opened it himself, bowing slightly like the perfect gentleman, and Rumi giggled as she slid inside. Naruto followed, their fingers never parting. The city light streaked past the tinted windows as the car pulled away, but they barely noticed. Rumi leaned into him, her head resting against his shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her waist as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Silence filled the cabin, comfortable, not awkward. Every so often, she would tilt her face up, and his lips would find hers again, soft kisses turning slower, deeper, until their breaths came uneven and their laughter dissolved into warmth. By the time the limo neared the estate, Rumi's lipstick had faded and Naruto's hair was mussed from her fingers running through it. They didn't care. All that mattered was the way they held on to each other, tangled and close, as if letting go would break the spell. When the car slowed to a stop, Naruto pressed his forehead to hers. "I don't want tonight to end," he admitted softly. Rumi's answer was a kiss, gentle but full of promise. "Then it doesn't have to." The door opened, and hand in hand they stepped back into the night, still flushed, still smiling, two hunters, two kids, but in that moment, nothing more and nothing less than two hearts wrapped around each other. The house was dim when they slipped inside, the others long gone to bed. Naruto let Rumi tug him by the hand into the living room, the only light the soft glow of a lamp left burning low. They sank onto the couch without a word, as if they both knew this was where they wanted to be. At first, it was just their hands twined together, thumbs brushing lazy circles. But the quiet pressed them closer. Naruto tilted his head, Rumi's breath caught, and then their lips met again, slow, unhurried, the kind of kiss meant to last. Minutes blurred into hours. They broke apart only to whisper little things, half teasing, half serious, before finding each other again. Her fingers traced the scars on his arm, and instead of flinching, he let her. His hand rested against her cheek, grounding her, calming her. By the time the clock ticked past midnight, their words had dwindled. Rumi curled into his chest, and Naruto pulled a blanket down from the back of the couch, wrapping it around them both. His chin rested atop her hair, her heartbeat steady against his side. They drifted like that, soft breaths and gentle warmth, until sleep finally claimed them. Two hunters, battered by burdens too heavy for their age, but at peace in that moment. For the first time in a long time, neither dreamed of demons, or loss, or fear. They dreamed of nothing at all because they had each other. The sun was high when the peace finally broke. Naruto and Rumi were still wrapped up in each other when Jiraiya stepped out into the courtyard with Kakashi and Selene at his side. His usual grin was gone, replaced by a sigh that carried years of weight. "He's happy," Jiraiya muttered, watching them through the window. "Happier than I've ever seen him. And I've got to tear him away." Selene's arms were crossed, her expression tight. "You don't have a choice. He's grown too fast, Jiraiya. His resonance is loud, his storm can be felt across battlefields. And demons, real demons, not the kind we hunt in the alleys, are watching." Kakashi's eye narrowed. "Jiraiya's kind." Jiraiya nodded grimly. "Exactly. They smell power like his, and they'll want it. If they take him, they won't just kill him. They'll use him. And no one here is strong enough to stop them yet." Inside, the girls noticed the shift. Sakura stepped forward. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Jiraiya turned to her, his voice flat and steady. "This afternoon, I'm taking Naruto away. A training trip, 5 years. He doesn't know yet, but it has to be done. If he stays here, those demons will come straight for him, and for everyone he loves." The words struck like blades. Zoe's eyes went wide, Mira shook her head in disbelief. 5 years? That's forever. Sasuke frowned but said nothing, though his fists tightened. Selene's gaze softened, but her tone didn't. "This isn't about choice. It's survival. You've seen the marks. You've seen the storms. If he doesn't learn control, he'll either burn himself out or be devoured by them. Silence hung heavy. They all looked back at the boy inside, laughing softly as Rumi teased him over nothing at all, her head resting on his shoulder. Jiraiya sighed, dragging a hand down his face. I'll give him until after lunch. Let him have one more memory before I break his world apart. The afternoon light slanted golden across the room. Naruto sat restless on the couch, still flushed with the pride of becoming Chunin. He was expecting ramen, laughter, maybe Kakashi's lazy praise. Instead, Jiraiya's voice cut the warmth like a blade. You're leaving with me. A training trip. 5 years. The words hit like a kunai to the chest. Naruto froze, then shot to his feet, fists balled, face red with heat. No. No way. I'm done with this. I've given everything. I've bled, I've trained, I've suffered more than anyone here, and now you want to rip me away from my team, my home, my friends. His voice cracked, rising sharper, louder. Haven't I done enough? Jiraiya's gaze stayed steady. You've grown too strong. And demons stronger still have noticed. If you stay, they'll come for you and for everyone you love. Naruto's teeth ground together, a furious growl ripping from his chest. He slammed his fist into the wall, splinters cracking loose. His voice dropped lower, rawer, but it cut sharper than any shout. I've already been attacked by Orochimaru. I've passed the initial hunter exams. I've trained until I collapsed. I fought my way through the Chunin exams. I've trained even more after that. Every DMN time life's thrown something at me, I've stood up. I've clawed forward. And now that I'm finally happy, his breath shuddered, eyes burning with tears. I have to give it up. Again. His shoulders shook, fury bleeding into grief. How much more do I have to give? I gave my parents without even knowing them. I gave my childhood to loneliness. I gave everything I had in that arena. Why is it always me? Why do I always have to lose something? Silence weighed heavy. Kakashi looked away, jaw tight. Celine pressed a trembling hand to her lips. And then, soft and breaking, came the sound of a breath from the doorway. Naruto turned. Rumi stood there, her hand gripping the frame, her eyes already wet. She had heard every word. His mouth opened, panic flickering, but the truth was out. His chest heaved, his voice cracked. I finally found her and now I have to walk away. He sank back onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Rumi rushed to him, kneeling at his side. She pulled his hands away, forcing his eyes to hers. You're not losing me, Naruto. Not now, not ever. She climbed onto the couch beside him, wrapping her arms tight around his neck. He clung to her like a drowning boy to shore, sobs shaking through him. I don't want to go, he whispered, voice shredded. Her tears spilled too, hot against his cheek. I don't want you to either. But you're not giving me up. I'll wait. However long it takes. When you come back, I'll be right here. Naruto held her tighter, the storm inside him breaking at last. Jiraiya stood in silence, arms folded, his usual grin gone. Kakashi's lone eye was heavy, filled with pity. Celine turned away, her own tears threatening to fall. None of them spoke. Because nothing could soften it. Nothing but her arms around him, promising he wouldn't face this burden alone. Naruto stood at the village gates. Having left Celine's house an hour earlier. Naruto's pack sat heavy on his shoulders, but not as heavy as the knot in his chest. The sun burned bright overhead, cruelly ordinary for a day that felt anything but. Every step toward the village gate seemed louder than it should, every face he passed sharper in his memory than in real life. They were all waiting for him. Team 7. Kakashi. Jiraiya at his side. Celine and the girls. Even Shino and Lee, standing stiff and proud as though their presence alone could anchor him here. Sakura moved first. She crashed into him with a hug so fierce his ribs protested, her forehead pressed against his chest. "Don't you dare die out there," she muttered, her voice breaking. He ruffled her hair with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Sasuke followed, arms crossed, gaze cool but steady. He smirked, though there was warmth under it. "Don't slack off, Dobe. I expect you to be stronger than me when you come back." Naruto chuckled, clapping him on the shoulder, the weight of their bond unspoken but real. Zoe threw her arms around him next, crying openly, refusing to let go until Mira tugged her back. Mira herself only punched his arm, muttering, "Don't make her cry like this again, idiot." But her voice wavered, and when she turned away, her eyes were wet. Celine placed her hands over his, firm and steady, like a mother sending off her son. "You've already proven more than enough, Naruto. Come back alive, and that will be victory enough." Even Lee stepped forward, saluting dramatically, his brass gloves gleaming in the sun. "Your flames of youth will never go out. I will keep training until your return." His voice cracked halfway through, but his stance never faltered. Kakashi stayed back until the others had finished. When he finally stepped forward, he only offered a lazy wave, his visible eye crinkling. "You've grown too fast, Naruto. I'm proud. Don't forget who's waiting for you when you're done." Naruto grinned, throat tight, and nodded. "Got it, Kakashi-sensei." And then he turned. Rumi stood a little apart from the rest, as if the world itself had pulled away to leave them alone. Her black dress shimmered faintly, the patterns on her arms glowing in the sunlight only hunters could see. Her eyes brown, steady, desperate were locked on him. He dropped his pack to the dirt. 3 long strides closed the gap. His hand trembled as it cupped her cheek, but his kiss was steady, deep, fierce, pouring every word he couldn't say into that single moment. Her hands clung to him, her fingers digging into his jacket, like she could tether him there if she just held on tight enough. She kissed him back with everything she had, her tears falling freely, soaking into his shirt. When they finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together, Naruto whispered hoarsely, "Till we meet again." Rumi sobbed, smiling through it. "I'll be here. Always." He held her one last time, memorizing the feel of her in his arms, the warmth, the way she fit perfectly against him. Then, slowly, he pulled away, shouldering his pack again. The gate opened. Jiraiya stood waiting, his expression hard but his eyes weighed with sorrow. Naruto glanced back one last time, and the image seared itself into his heart. Rumi standing there in the sunlight, unshaken, unbroken, waiting for him. Then the gate closed behind him, and the village swallowed the sound of his footsteps. Fans packed the streets outside the stadium, signs glittering, chants echoing through Seoul. Hunter/X. 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 Celine's voice carried over it all in memory, soft and solemn. "The world will know you as pop stars, but you will be much more than that. You will be hunters." Long ago, demon hunters had fought Korean spirits while singing to the people. Their songs weren't just entertainment, they were shields. Demons have always haunted our world, stealing our souls and channeling strength back to their king, VERYYYY. Until heroes arose to defend us. Born with voices that could drive back the darkness. Singing songs of courage and hope. But hunters are more than warriors. Our music ignites the soul and brings people together. With this connection, the first hunters created a shield to protect our world, the Han Moon. Images flickered across memory and history, voices raised, hands joined, barriers shimmering against the night. Every generation, a new trio of hunters is chosen to fulfill our ultimate duty. A barrier so strong it is impenetrable, that will keep demons and VERYYYY from our world forever, the Golden Han Moon. Now it was HUNTR/X's turn. Celine faced them, eyes fierce. "And now, that duty falls to you. That victory is within your reach. It is your voices, your song, that will create the golden Hanmoon. The three nodded. Yes, Celine. Back outside, the crowd surged toward the stadium gates. Let's go, HUNTR/X, one girl screamed, clutching her poster. Fans cried, laughed, and declared their favorites. Myra's my bias. She's the visual, the dancer nobody moves like Mira. She's the black sheep of her family, but look at her now. Zoe's the rapper, she's the cutest magne, but when she raps, she's terrifying. Rumi's voice, it makes us cry. She's pop star royalty. Her mom was a Sunlight sister, and Celine built the whole group around her. Huntrix forever. Inside, Bobby barked at the crew, hauling cables and setting lights. Everyone look alive. Okay, ready. Wait, where are the girls? Where the hell are they? On a luxury jet high above, HUNTR/X were definitely not on stage. Okay, this is our biggest show yet, Rumi said, determination written across her face. The most songs, Zoe added. The most moves, Mira agreed. Which means the most carb loading. They shouted together, for the fans, before digging into their feast: ramen cups, fried chicken, snacks piled on trays. 10,000 calories minimum, Rumi declared through a mouthful. 1,000%, Mira nodded. A gajillion%, she corrected herself, earning a flat look from Rumi. Their phone buzzed Bobby on FaceTime. What are you doing? He demanded, panic in his voice. Pre-show ramen, Rumi answered innocently. Pre-show. 50,000 fans are waiting. They made signs. They're screaming your names. You should be here already. The girls froze. Rumi waved him off. Keep your shirt on, Bobby. We'll be there in 3. But as she looked out the window, her smile faltered. The plane wasn't circling Seoul anymore, it was flying away from the stadium. And the crew. Wrong. Too wrong. A flight attendant poured coffee into a plant, another buckled seatbelts the wrong way, the captain hit buttons like a child at an arcade. Excuse me? Rumi stood. You're a demon, right? The stewardess blinked, nervous. What? You're smiling weird, watering plants with coffee. And, Rumi grabbed her wrist, shoving back the sleeve to reveal faint purple patterns glowing beneath her skin. Patterns. The woman hissed, body distorting into a horned, clawed demon. The others followed. Seatbelt man, the captain, 2 more passengers each marked, each grinning with sharpened teeth. Mira groaned. Ah, you got the patterns. Now you gotta die. The captain sneered, voice guttural. The only ones dying tonight are your. Rumi's stomach gurgled loudly. She raised a brow. Sorry, what? He roared louder. Your fans. We're gonna eat your fans. That was it. Not our fans, Zoe growled, her voice already crackling with resonance. When you mess with our fans, Mira cracked her knuckles, sliding into stance. We need to make it hurt. Rumi smirked. Then let's show them how it's done. Her mic shimmered into existence, and she began to sing. Ugh, you came at a bad time. But you just crossed the line. You wanna get wild? Okay, I'll show you wild. The first demon lunged. Rumi spun, boot slamming into his chest, blasting him into the cockpit door. Mira followed, weaving through claws like a dancer between spotlight beams. Beating you is what I do, yeah, she sang, driving her knee into another demon's jaw. Zoe vaulted onto a seat, balanced sharp as a knife. Body on body, I'm naughty, not even sorry, she spat, dropping heel first onto a demon's skull. Their voices fused, harmony as sharp as blades, each lyric thrumming with soul resonance. The demons tried to swarm, but every strike was met with rhythm, every attack countered by song. Huntrix don't miss how it's done, 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 they roared together, the fuselage shaking under the force. Mira pirouette through a lunge, snapping a demon's arm. Rumi's kick launched him back into Zoe's waiting mic swing. Another went down. One by one, they fell until only silence remained, broken light sparking above, smoke curling faintly. Mira stooped, scooping up her spilled ramen. Yeah, this plane's trashed. They slurped quickly, tossing the cups aside. Okay, Rumi said, eyes blazing. Let's finish this. The emergency hatch blew open. Wind roared, whipping their hair as the city lights spread out below, the stadium glowing like a beacon. Happy fans, Zoe shouted, gripping Myra's hand. Happy Hanmoon. Rumi answered, and together they leapt. 3 streaks of light cut across the night, voices already rising, already carrying toward 50,000 waiting fans. And HUNTR/X sang louder, falling straight into battle, straight into the show. The roar of 50,000 voices shook the stadium, a living heartbeat. Lights flashed, banners waved, chants rose into the soul night. Hunter/X. 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 Bobby darted back and forth backstage, headset crooked, panic sweat strkng his face. Where are they? Where the hell are they? I'm gonna. A bass note thudded, lights dimmed, and the crowd screamed louder. Spotlights swirled across the stage, but it was empty. Bobby cursed, shoving crew members aside. Then the roof cracked with thunder. 3 streaks of light plummeted from the sky, trailing fire and song. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the streaks slammed down on the main stage, smoke curling away, music bursting from hidden speakers on cue. There they were. Rumi. Mira. Zoe. Hunter/X. The crowd lost its mind. People screamed until their voices cracked, sobbed into their posters, clutched each other like they'd seen angels descend. Rumi stepped forward, voice cutting through the smoke like a blade. Hear our voice unwavering till our song defeats the night. Mira twirled, resonance flaring like neon wings. Making fear afraid to breathe till the dark meets the light. Zoe dropped low, spitting into the mic like the words themselves were artillery. Huntrix don't miss how it's done, done, done. The floor shook as pyrotechnics exploded, fire chasing up the rafters in perfect sync with their voices. Fans collapsed against the barricades, crying and chanting. We love you. Marry me, Mira. Rumi, your voice saved my life. Zoe, step on me. From the VIP box, Celine stood, hands clasped tightly. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, yes, that's it. That's the Hanmoon. Because it wasn't just music, it was resonance. Their voices braided together, forming a shimmering shield that rippled faintly above the crowd, unseen by most but felt by every soul in the arena. Safety. Warmth. The light against the dark. Mira winked, flipping her mic, sweat already glistening as she sang into the chaos. We hunt you down, down, down. We got you now, now, now. Rumi raised her hand, black dress catching the firelight, her patterns glowing faintly hidden to the world but blazing to hunters. She smiled, radiant, her voice soaring like it had carried generations. And together, HUNTR/X brought the house down. Backstage was chaos in the best way. Crew darted around with clipboards and earpieces, fans still screaming outside like the show hadn't ended. The air was thick with heat, sweat, and the electric hum of adrenaline not yet faded. Bobby pushed through the maze of cables, waving his arms. Robes. Water. Now, now, now somebody move. The girls laughed as stagehands rushed in with fluffy white robes, slipping them onto their shoulders, pressing chilled bottles into their hands. Mira flopped onto a folding chair with a dramatic groan, Zoe collapsed next to her, chugging water like she'd crossed a desert. Rumi tugged her robe tighter, cheeks still glowing from the lights, heart still racing with the last notes echoing in her bones. Then the door opened. Celine swept in, her heels clicking against the concrete. For a moment the noise of the crew seemed to fade. She went straight to them, arms out, pulling all three girls into a fierce hug. "Great tour," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud of you." Myra's tired eyes brightened, Zoe leaned into the embrace, and Rumi felt the words hit deeper than she expected. They weren't just praise. They were truth. They had carried it the stage, the voices, the Hanmun's promise, and Celine had seen it all. When she finally stepped back, her smile was radiant. "Huntrix," she said softly, "you showed the world tonight what only hunters can do." The girls exchanged glances, a little breathless, a little overwhelmed. They had sung for their fans, fought demons at 30,000 feet, and still come back down to pour their souls into every lyric. And now, wrapped in robes with sweat drying on their skin, they realized Celine was right. They had done more than perform. They had protected. And for the first time that night, the exhaustion felt good. They all relaxed once the curtain closed and the noise of 50,000 fans softened into the distance. Bobby, already barking orders, had water and robes waiting for them the moment they stepped off stage. The girls sank into the softness, still glowing with sweat and adrenaline, gulping down cold bottles while stagehands hurried to break down the set. Bobby stayed close, phone in one hand, clipboard in the other. He was more than just a manager, he'd been in the loop about the hunter business for years. He had to be, with Sasuke and Sakura showing up at odd hours whenever the girls weren't on tour. He sighed, dialing for another private jet. Huntrix were stinkin' rich now, and they needed to stay 2 steps ahead. "All right," he said, straightening, "we've got another plane lined up. And I've got the best resort planned for you all. We can leave in 5. Zoe giggled, swinging her legs off the chair. "Sorry, Bobby. We already have an appointment with the best place in the world." Mira nodded, still smirking. Bobby blinked. "Where?" Celine, who had just joined them, smiled knowingly as she walked past. "Let me guess, the couch." Zoe and Mira broke into laughter, their tired voices filling the space. Bobby just shook his head, muttering something about pop stars with no sense of luxury. Rumi smiled too, but her attention wasn't on the banter. Her phone glowed in her hands, screen showing an old photo. Her and Naruto, sitting side by side on their very first date, before he left. 5 years had passed since then, 5 years of silence broken only by rare calls, short, strained, never long enough. His training with Jiraiya was relentless, and they were always on the move, dodging demons that hunted him across the world. Celine leaned over her shoulder, her expression softening when she saw the picture. "You miss him, don't you?" Rumi nodded, her throat tight. Celine pressed a kiss to her temple. "He'll come back soon, Rumi. I promise." Rumi's smile was small, but it reached her eyes. Celine always knew what to say. The elevator doors slid open to reveal the penthouse, the top floor glittering with glass and marble. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city lights, the sprawl of Seoul stretching endless beneath the night sky. Celine smiled at them, pride shining in her eyes, but she knew better than to hover. "You've earned this," she said simply, and with that, she left them to their own devices. The space was quiet after she was gone, the noise of the stadium replaced by the soft hum of the city. Mira flopped onto the couch first, arms spread wide. "Bathhouse," she declared. Zoe groaned in agreement, already tugging at her hoodie. Both of them turned to Rumi with expectant eyes. Rumi hesitated for only a second before she nodded. "Of course." Her fingers brushed the faint purple patterns on her arms, once hidden, once a source of shame. 5 years ago, she would have made an excuse, found a reason to stay behind, too afraid of the whispers. But now, the girls had accepted her without question. Everyone had. She didn't have to hide anymore. Together, the 3 of them slipped into robes and made their way to the bathhouse. Steam curled in the air, carrying the scent of mineral water and cedar. They slid into the heat with a collective sigh, muscles relaxing, their bodies finally allowed to rest. 9 months across Asia, city after city, night after night, stage after stage. Their voices had carried to millions, their music had wrapped around crowds like a shield, and their battles behind the scenes had been fought and won. And now, at last, there was no cheering crowd, no demons in the shadows. Just warmth, quiet, and the three of them. Mira leaned her head back against the tile, closing her eyes. I swear, I could live here. Zoe let out a lazy laugh. You mean in the bath or in the penthouse? Both, Mira said without opening her eyes. Rumi smiled softly, sinking deeper into the water, letting herself breathe. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt at peace. They were home. Steam curled up from the hot baths, the three girls sinking deeper into the water with sighs of relief. After 9 months on the road, every muscle ached, but here wrapped in warmth, laughter, and quiet they could finally breathe. Myra's phone buzzed on the tile. She groaned, stretching an arm out of the water to snatch it up. Without looking, she put it on speaker. Babe, you better have a good reason to call. We're in the bathhouse. A low chuckle rumbled through the speaker, smooth and steady. Relax, Sasuke's voice came, confident as always. Sakura and I just landed in Seoul. Thought we'd surprise you. Zoe squealed so loudly the bathhouse walls echoed. Are you serious? Mira sat up straighter, a smile tugging at her lips despite the blush heating her face. You could have warned me, you know. When? Sakura's voice chimed in, warm and teasing. When? Try now. We're already at a ramen stall near your building. Sasuke insisted we stop to eat first. A muffled scolding carried over the line, Sakura's voice sharper in the background. No, Sasuke, you are not making me pay this time. You said. Sasuke's sigh cut her off. Fine, fine. Order what you want. I'll cover it. His voice steadied again as he spoke into the phone. Do you want us to bring some up? Fresh ramen, extra toppings. The three girls shouted, yes, so loud a few attendants peeked in, confused. Good, Sasuke replied. We'll be there in 30. The line clicked off. Mira flopped back into the water, covering her face with her hands. Gods, I love that man. Zoe laughed, kicking water toward her. I would hope so. 6 years together, Mira, you'd better. Rumi smiled, sinking deeper into the steam. Guess the night just got better. The penthouse door opened, and Sasuke stepped in first, a bag of ramen hanging from one hand. He had grown into himself since the early days, taller now, his frame lean and sharp with the kind of strength that didn't need to announce itself. His hair had grown long, brushing past his shoulders in loose waves, tied back just enough to keep it out of his eyes. It made him look older, more deliberate, though the faint smirk on his lips was still the same. He handed the bag off to Zoe, who squealed with delight at the smell of broth and noodles, then brushed a lock of hair from his face with practiced ease. He didn't speak much, but his presence filled the room as naturally as it always had. Myra's lips curved into a smile as she leaned into him when he passed. They'd been seeing each other regularly, missions, visits, calls squeezed in between tours, but every time, it still struck her just how much he had changed from the boy she'd first met. Now, he was every bit a man, composed and steady, with that quiet confidence that made people listen even when he wasn't trying. Sakura followed him inside, arms full of more takeout. She'd changed too, hair cropped shorter, posture as strong as her grin. 6 years together and you two still make it look brand new, she teased, setting the food down on the table. Maybe because it is, Mira said, smirking as she stole a quick kiss from Sasuke's lips, her voice warm but sure. Rumi chuckled softly, Zoe all but bouncing in place as she tore open the ramen bags, and for a while the penthouse was filled with laughter, clinking chopsticks, and the easy hum of friends who had earned this peace. The food spread across the table in steaming cartons and bowls, ramen broth filling the penthouse with a rich, savory smell. They dug in without hesitation, chopsticks clattering and laughter spilling into the air. Between mouthfuls, Zoe animatedly described the chaos of their last tour stop in Tokyo: the broken pyrotechnics, the fans who had camped out for days, the encore that went 3 songs longer than planned. Mira cut in with her own story about Bobby nearly fainting backstage when Zoe tried to freestyle too close to the fire jets. Sasuke actually chuckled, a quiet sound, but one that made Mira glance at him with a grin she couldn't hide. When it was his turn, he spoke about a mission in the mountains, a job that had dragged on 4 weeks in freezing snow. Sakura rolled her eyes as he undersold the danger, filling in the gaps with sharp gestures and a kind of dramatic detail that made Zoe gasp and Rumi laugh until her eyes watered. The stories bounced back and forth, music tours blending into battlefields, the world of pop stars and hunters folding together in a way that felt strangely seamless. Every memory shared lit the room brighter, every laugh layered over the last. For once, there was no stage to rush back to, no demon looming in the shadows, no mission tugging them away. Just friends, food, and the rare gift of being able to sit at the same table, happy and whole. Zoe leaned forward on her elbows, chin resting in her hands, her eyes sparkling like she'd been holding something in all night. "So tell me about Gaara," she said suddenly, drawing out the name like it was some great secret. Everyone at the table paused. Mira blinked. Rumi raised an eyebrow. Sasuke gave the barest flick of his eyes up from his bowl. Sakura, on the other hand, burst into a giggle. "Gaara? Really?" she teased, nudging Zoe with her shoulder. "You've never even met him." Zoe didn't back down, her cheeks pink but her grin shameless. "I don't need to. He's mysterious, broody, insanely powerful, and he reads Twilight in the middle of tournaments. What's not to love?" That earned a rare laugh out of Sasuke, low, short, but real. "You'd get along just fine," he said, sipping his broth. Mira groaned, covering her face with her hands. "Gods help us if you ever actually meet him." Rumi chuckled, reaching for her drink. "At least she has a type." Zoe just sighed dreamily, ignoring them all. "Gaara." The room broke into laughter again, the warmth of it chasing away the last of the long months behind them. The laughter slowly died down as they settled back into their food, the table still buzzing with quiet chatter. Sasuke leaned back in his chair, one arm draped casually over the backrest, the picture of calm. "By the way," he said, glancing at Sakura, "Naruto should be back soon." Zoe perked up instantly. "Finally. Rumi, you've been moping for months." Rumi blushed, glaring at her glass. "I don't mope," she muttered. Sasuke smirked, ignoring the protest. "He's going to be pissed when he finds out we've already made Jonin. You know how competitive he gets." Sakura laughed, nodding. "He'll act all sulky and dramatic for a week straight, just watch." The table chuckled, but Rumi only sighed softly, her hand tightening around the edge of her plate. 5 years, and she still felt that ache whenever Naruto's name came up. He had promised he'd come back, and she believed him with all her heart. But every reminder of the time lost together tugged at her chest. Mira leaned against her with a little nudge, breaking the moment. "Don't worry, Rue. He'll be back before you know it. And when he is, none of us are going to hear the end of it." Rumi smiled faintly, but her eyes stayed distant, the thought of Naruto lingering heavier than the laughter around her. The night stretched on in warmth and laughter, stories tumbling over one another until the restaurant had long since quieted. Plates were cleared, drinks half finished, but none of them seemed eager to let go of the moment. Still, eventually, duty called. When they finally stood to leave, Mira latched onto Sasuke's arm with a mock-serious look. "You could just stay in my room, you know. Like you've done before." Her tone was casual, but the pink flush creeping up her cheeks betrayed her. Sasuke smirked, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "We've got to meet Kakashi in the morning. And knowing you, he leaned in, voice low and teasing, we wouldn't get any sleep. Myra's eyes widened, and before she could stop herself, she grabbed a pillow from the booth and hurled it at his chest. Shut up. Sasuke caught it easily, laughing under his breath. Even as she fumed, her blush gave her away. He tilted her chin with a hand, kissed her quickly, and chuckled at the way she froze before pushing him half-heartedly. The others were already filing out, Zoe giggling at the scene, Sakura shaking her head, and Rumi hiding a smile. Sasuke slung his jacket over his shoulder and followed them out, still laughing softly to himself. Mira stood in the doorway, arms crossed but lips curved despite herself, watching him disappear into the soul night. The penthouse had gone still after Sasuke and Sakura left. The city light stretched across Seoul's skyline, muted by the glass walls, and the three girls ended up piled together on the couch with a half-empty bowl of popcorn between them. Zoe had insisted on putting on a 5-hour-long documentary about turtles, half as a joke, half because she thought it would be educational. Within the first hour, she was out cold, her cheek squished against Myra's shoulder. Mira didn't last much longer, her head lolled back, soft snores slipping out as the narrator droned on about migration patterns. Rumi stayed awake the longest. She curled deeper into the blanket, her phone resting in her hands. The screen glowed faintly with a single photo, her and Naruto, smiling on their first date, his hair smoothed down for once, her black dress catching the light. Her chest ached, but it was a sweet ache. 5 years had passed since he left with Jiraiya. 5 years of waiting, of wondering. And now soon. Rumi brushed her thumb over his face in the photo, her lips curving into a soft smile. See you soon, she whispered, the words meant for him alone. The screen dimmed as her eyes fluttered shut, the faint hum of the city and the steady voice of the turtle narrator lulling her into sleep. In the heart of the leaf, 2 figures approached through the main road, the late afternoon sun catching them both. One was an older man, broad-shouldered with a mane of white hair spilling down his back, his steps easy but commanding. Beside him walked a younger man, taller still, long blonde hair tied back into a ponytail, a red cloak draped across his shoulders. His gait carried confidence earned through fire and trial. He was larger than most remembered, his frame carved with the kind of muscle that spoke of endless training. Not swollen for show, but sharpened and hardened, every inch of him shaped like steel-made flesh. Not the lean build of his father, but something heavier, more immovable, Herculean. The guards at the gate froze. For a moment they thought they were seeing a ghost. 5 years had passed since the Chunin exams, since the boy who bore whirlpools and storms stood against prodigies and carved his name into history. That boy had disappeared into legend, vanishing with Jiraiya into the shadows of the world. And yet here he was. If not for the faint traces of whisker marks that ghosted his cheeks, they might not have believed it was the same person at all. The teenager was gone. In his place stood a man who carried storms in his eyes and the weight of 5 long years in his stride. The guards caught their breath, or rippling through them. Naruto Uzumaki had come home. Every eye turned. Not for Jiraiya, though his presence always carried weight, but for the blonde hunter at his side. Whispers stirred like wind through leaves, carrying his name as though it had never left their lips. Naruto. Even after all these years, they remembered. The boy who had once stood in the Chunin exams and shook the arena with storm and whirlpool, who bore scars across his body and still refused to fall. The boy who had made history. But he was no boy now. The villagers saw. The red cloak flowing behind him, the broad shoulders, the calm and steady stride. The whisker marks still clung faintly to his cheeks, the last trace of a child's face, but everything else had hardened, sharpened. His eyes burned brighter than the day he left, like steel struck against flint, steady but alive with hidden fire. Mothers paused in the market, clutching their baskets a little tighter. Children stopped in the street, wide-eyed, pointing with the kind of innocent or reserved for legends. The guards at the gate stood stiff, unable to speak, their throats dry. And slowly, almost reverently, the crowd parted as he passed. Not a cheer. Not yet. But silence and instinctive recognition that something greater than memory walked among them again. The Hokage's office rang with heated voices. Scrolls and reports littered the wide oak desk, while behind it Tsunade slammed her palm down hard enough to rattle the inkpots. Her golden hair gleamed under the lantern light, her eyes sharp with fire. Across from her, Hiruzen stood calm but weary, his pipe unlit in his hand, his voice the tempered steel of experience. "Tsunade, listen. I've listened long enough, old man," she snapped. "If you think we can keep holding the line without more funding for field medics, then you're gambling with lives we can't afford to lose." The argument cut short when the door creaked open. Jiraiya strode in first, his familiar grin tempered by the gravity of his presence. But all eyes snapped to the figure beside him. Naruto. The red cloak brushed the polished floor as he stepped forward, broader and taller than memory. His shadow stretched long in the office's lantern glow. Without hesitation, he went down on one knee, his head bowed low, his voice steady, resonant with years of DSPLN. "Hokage-sama," he said, reverence in every syllable. "It's an honor to finally meet you." Tsunade blinked, caught off guard by the formality. Hiruzen's lips curved in a barest smile as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. The office fell silent, save for the faint rustle of Naruto's cloak and the soft crackle of paper in the breeze from the open window. The fifth Hokage's lips softened into a smile, the tension of the earlier argument easing as she took in the sight of him. "So you must be Naruto," she said, her tone warm but edged with curiosity. "Hiruzen has told me about you." Still kneeling, Naruto lifted his gaze with a grin that carried both humility and quiet pride. "Only the good things, I hope." Hiruzen's pipe trembled faintly in his hand, the old man chuckling under his breath. Tsunade, however, stepped closer. For all her bluntness, for all her fire, she found herself disarmed by the boy's no, the man's manner. He wasn't bowing out of fear, nor out of empty ceremony. His posture was steady, unshaken, and when she looked into his eyes she saw not flattery, but something rarer in Shinobi, genuine respect. "Get up," she said at last, waving her hand. "I'm not used to all this bowing and scraping. Especially not from someone who clearly means it." Naruto rose, the red cloak sliding across his broad shoulders. He smiled again, but this time softer, almost relieved, as if the act of politeness hadn't been habit but instinct. For a moment, Tsunade studied him in silence, her eyes narrowing slightly. He looked nothing like the scrappy teenager she had only seen in reports. Without the whisker marks and boyish frame, it would have been easy to mistake him for someone else entirely. And yet there was something in the way he carried himself, a flame in his chest that felt unmistakably familiar. Jiraiya leaned against the wall, arms folded, his white mane catching the light from the window. "His training's complete," he said, his voice carrying the weight of 5 years of travel and battle. "Stronger than me, even." Naruto flushed, the tips of his ears turning red. "Not true, sensei," he muttered quickly, rubbing the back of his neck like he'd been caught bragging. Jiraiya only smirked. "Humph. You can be modest all you want, kid, but facts don't lie. I've seen you face storms and walk out stronger. I've seen you wrestle with your own resonance and come out steady. What you've become, it's more than I ever managed." Tsunade's brow arched. She knew Jiraiya well enough to catch the subtle pride in his tone. He was never generous with praise. If he was saying this, then the boy truly had become something remarkable. Naruto shifted on his feet, still uneasy with the weight of their eyes on him. "I just did what I had to do. Nothing more." "Exactly," Jiraiya said, his grin softening. "And that's what makes you dangerous." Tsunade leaned back in her chair, arms folded under her chest, studying Naruto like she was weighing steel. "If Jiraiya's so convinced, then I'll take his word. But words aren't enough for me. In 1 week, Kakashi will test you himself, see how far you've come." Naruto straightened, bowing his head in respect. "Of course, Hokage-sama." He hesitated for a heartbeat, then lifted his gaze, voice softer but steady. But if it's alright, could I go home first? Just until then. There's someone I need to see. The way he said it earnest, almost aching made both elders glance at one another. Jiraiya's smirk faded into something more thoughtful, and even Hiruzen's old eyes softened with understanding. Tsunade tapped her fingers against the desk, then nodded. Fine. 1 week. Don't be late. Relief washed through Naruto's shoulders, and he bowed once more, gratitude plain in his voice. Thank you. As Naruto bowed his way out of the office, Jiraiya's booming laugh filled the room. He's not thinking about rest or food, Tsunade. The brat's got a girl waiting on him. Wants to run straight back to Rumi, his girlfriend. Naruto's head whipped around, face blazing red. Sensei. Tsunade blinked, then leaned forward sharply, her eyes narrowing in disbelief. Rumi? You mean the Rumi? The K-pop idol plastered on every DMN magazine cover from Seoul to New York. Jiraiya only grinned wider, clearly enjoying himself. That's the one. He's been carrying a torch for years. Before Tsunade could fire back another incredulous question, Hiruzen cleared his throat, lifting a hand. It's not as far-fetched as it sounds. When Naruto lost his family to a demon attack, Selene took him in. She raised him from the age of 5 alongside her girls. Rumi was there from the beginning. The 5th Hokage stilled, her expression shifting as the old report resurfaced in her memory, the sealed file explaining why the boy had been moved, why the Hunter Society had intervened. Slowly, she exhaled, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. So that's why makes sense now. Naruto, still flustered, scratched the back of his head. She's important to me. That's all. Jiraiya clapped him on the back, nearly knocking him forward. Important? Kid, you've been mooning over her in every country we've stopped in for 5 years. Naruto groaned, cheeks burning, but even as he protested, a small, stubborn smile crept across his face. As the doors closed behind Naruto and Jiraiya, the air in the Hokage's office seemed to still. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, amber eyes narrowing. He's the boy Orochimaru marked, isn't he? She asked, voice quieter now, strppd of its usual steel. Hiruzen's expression softened into something wearier, almost fatherly, as he gave a single grave nod. Yes. First the whiskers from the night his family was slaughtered. Then the marks from Orochimaru during the exams. 2 scars no child should ever carry. Tsunade's eyes flicked toward the door again, a storm tightening in her chest. How the hell didn't he break, she muttered. Most grown men would have collapsed under half that weight. But him, he kneels with that composure, he speaks with that politeness, she trailed off, shaking her head as if she couldn't reconcile the boy's past with the man she just saw. Hiruzen folded his hands on the desk, voice steady but full of an old ache. Because every time the world tried to crush him, he chose to stand. He had Selene to guide him, Rumi to remind him he wasn't alone, and comrades who refused to let him fall. The boy was forged in fire, Tsunade, but he came out of it not bitter, not broken. Just unyielding. Tsunade sat in silence, chewing on that. The faint hum of cicadas drifted through the window, underscoring the weight of her thoughts. Finally, she exhaled, almost grudgingly. So instead of shattering, he turned it into armor. Into strength. Hiruzen allowed himself a thin smile. No. Not just strength. He turned it into purpose. Tsunade's gaze lingered on the spot where Naruto had stood moments before, her jaw tight. That kind of will, it's dangerous. It's what makes legends. Tsunade's gaze lingered on the door, the echo of Naruto's presence still heavy in the air. That kind of will, it's dangerous. It's what makes legends. Jiraiya leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her carefully. Dangerous, yeah. But also exactly what this world needs. Her eyes cut to him sharply. You're saying he's mastered it? The chaos resonance? After everything I've heard, that power shouldn't even be survivable. Jiraiya shook his head, a slow smirk tugging at his lips, though his eyes carried the gravity of truth. Not mastered. Not yet. But he's closer than anyone I've ever seen. He can wield it without losing himself. He doesn't let the storm consume him, he embraces it, bends it, makes it answer to him. Tsunade frowned, skeptical but unable to deny what she just witnessed in Naruto's bearing. So you're telling me the kid can stand on the edge of a cliff with a hurricane at his back and not fall? Jiraiya's smirk softened into something proud, almost paternal. I'm telling you he's building wings. He can't soar yet but he will. Soon. And when he does, gods help anyone who tries to tear this world apart again. Hiruzen's hand trembled slightly on his pipe, though he steadied it quickly. The boy's resonance was never going to be ordinary. But after 5 years of fire and steel, I believe he has the discipline to bear it. The fact that he can hold back at all after all he's lost, that's proof enough he's ready for the responsibility. For a long moment, Tsunade said nothing. Then, slowly, she leaned back in her chair, exhaling through her nose. If what you're saying is true, then he's walking the knife's edge between salvation and catastrophe. One wrong step. And that's why I trained him, Jiraiya cut in firmly. To make sure he never takes that wrong step. He's not perfect, not by a long shot. But he's not alone anymore, and that's what makes the difference. The office fell quiet, the sound of the city below drifting faintly up through the window. Tsunade finally muttered, almost grudgingly, then I suppose I'll have to see for myself in a week. Until then I'll take your word. Jiraiya's smirk returned, though softer this time. You'll see, Tsunade. He's ready. Not to mstr it but to prove he can carry it without breaking. That's more than anyone's managed before him. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the village rooftops, warm and golden. Naruto stood before a familiar door, his pulse quick in his chest. He knocked once, twice, and before he could take another breath, it swung open. Celine. His voice cracked with something caught between joy and relief. She blinked at him, then broke into a smile that softened every line of her face. Naruto. Before she could say another word, he wrapped his arms around her. She stiffened for only a heartbeat before hugging him back, hard, her hand pressing against the back of his head like she was afraid if she let go he'd vanish again. You've grown, she whispered into his shoulder. So much. He pulled back, smiling sheepishly. You too, Celine. She laughed at that, swatting his arm before leading him inside. They sat for a moment, the old warmth between them flooding back easily, no words needed. But Naruto's leg kept bouncing, his fingers drumming against his thigh. Finally, he leaned forward. Where are the girls? His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the restless anticipation. Celine studied him for a moment, a knowing look flickering in her gaze. She didn't make him wait long. At the HUNTR/X building. That's where they live now. She slid a folded paper across the table, scrawled with directions in her precise handwriting. Naruto snatched it up like a lifeline. He stood, hugging her again, tighter this time. Thank you. Really thank you. Celine held him for a moment longer, then pulled back with a small smile. Go on, then. You've kept her waiting long enough. Naruto laughed, the sound light and boyish in a way it hadn't been in years, and then he was gone, sprinting down the street, his heart hammering with only one thought in his chest. Rumi. The sun was barely clearing the rooftops when Naruto turned the last corner, the HUNTR/X tower gleaming just ahead. His heart hammered in his chest, each step carrying the weight of 5 long years. He had faced demons, storms, and endless training under Jiraiya's relentless watch, but nothing felt as daunting or as exciting as the moment he was about to see Rumi again. Then, just as the building came into view, 3 familiar figures stepped out of a tea shop. He froze. Sakura's hair was cropped shorter now, practical and sharp, her face framed by strands that made her look older, more confident. She carried herself like someone who knew her own strength. Sasuke walked beside her, taller than ever, his hair brushing his shoulders, his stride calm but commanding. And Kakashi still with his slouched posture and orange book, but even he seemed steadier, more seasoned, the weight of years quietly etched into the lines around his visible eye. Naruto's breath caught. He knew he had changed too taller, broader, his hair tied back in a rough ponytail, scars of training on his hands and arms. The whisker marks still cut across his cheeks, permanent, unhealed, reminders of everything he carried. He had grown into his frame, a build forged by work rather than luck, strength balanced with grace. Yet, standing there, he felt like the same boy who once chased after them down these same streets. Sakura's eyes widened first. Her cup slipped from her hand, tea spilling across the stones as her voice broke with disbelief. Naruto. His grin came wide and unguarded, the same grin she remembered, brighter than the sun. Hey, Sakura. She didn't hesitate. She ran forward, tears already gathering, and threw her arms around him. Her voice cracked with laughter and sobs all at once. Idiot. 5 years you couldn't have at least written more. Naruto laughed, hugging her back with the strength of someone who never wanted to let go. Sorry. Training didn't leave much time. But I missed you too. Sasuke came next. He stopped just short of Naruto, taller and sharper now, his presence commanding. For a long heartbeat, they only looked at each other. Two boys turned men, legacies carved into them both. Then Sasuke's lips tugged faintly into that familiar smirk. TCH. You got bigger. Naruto grinned and lifted his fist. Sasuke raised his, and when their knuckles met, the years melted away. Kakashi's approach was slower. He tucked his book away, his lone eye curving into that familiar smile. You've grown, Naruto. Stronger. Wiser. Jiraiya didn't waste his time. Naruto scratched the back of his head, his grin sheepish. Guess I had a good teacher, huh? For a moment, all four stood together in the morning light. They weren't the same children who once stumbled through missions and mistakes. They were stronger, wiser, tempered by battles and choices. And somehow, despite everything, they were together again. Naruto glanced toward the tower looming over them. His smile softened, almost shy. I gotta go. Someone's waiting for me. Sakura's grin turned sly. Sasuke's brow arched. Even Kakashi hummed knowingly. Naruto's face went red. It's not like that. Okay, it's exactly like that, but don't tease me. Their laughter chased him as he broke into a run again, the sound warm and familiar. His heart thundered louder still, carrying him toward the girl he hadn't seen in 5 years. The penthouse was quiet except for the clink of spoons against bowls. Rumi, Mira, and Zoe sat curled up at the kitchen counter in oversized pajamas, hair still messy from sleep, a mountain of cereal between them. They had earned this kind of lazy morning after 9 months of touring. The phone buzzed against the counter. Mira sighed, dragging it closer and answering without looking. Huntrick's residence, Mira speaking. Her words cut off, her face freezing. Someone is here to see Rumi. Says his name is Namikaze. The phone slipped right out of her hand and clattered on the counter. Rumi blinked, spoon halfway to her lips. What? Mira, what's wrong? Zoe leaned forward. Yeah, who was it? Mira scrambled, grabbing the phone back up, her hands shaking. Why yes, send him up. Right away. She hung up and turned to them, her mouth open, her voice shaking with disbelief. Naruto. Rumi's spoon clattered into her bowl. Her chest tightened all at once, like the breath had been knocked clean out of her. Naruto, she whispered, almost afraid to believe it. Zoe's eyes went wide, a grin spreading across her face. No way. He's here. Mira nodded, tears threatening to spill even as she smiled. Naruto's here. The room went still for a beat. Rumi's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst, cereal forgotten, her hands trembling as she rose from her chair. 5 years of waiting, of letters and rare phone calls, of longing that never dimmed suddenly, he was just an elevator ride away. Naruto's eyes lit up the moment he saw her. Teddy bear pajamas, messy hair, no makeup, none of it mattered. His grin stretched wide, so wide it almost hurt. He stepped forward, reaching for her. And then his foot caught the edge of a chair. Wah! Naruto pitched forward, arms flailing, and for a terrifying second it looked like the great hunter who had traveled the world was about to faceplant right in Celine's penthouse. But instead of crashing, the air itself seemed to rush beneath him. A cushion of wind rose up, lifting and steadying him mid-fall. For a breathless heartbeat he floated there, caught in his own soul resonance, before gently touching down on both feet. The faint shimmer of energy flickered away, leaving silence in its wake. Zoe's spoon clattered into her bowl. Did he just float? Mira blinked, deadpan. 5 years and he learned airwalking. Typical. Rumi just stood there, wide-eyed, heart hammering, torn between laughter and tears. He hadn't changed. He was stronger, taller, different, but at his core, he was still Naruto. Clumsy, bright, and somehow unstoppable. Naruto straightened, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. A surprise? Rumi's laugh broke out, shaky and wet with tears. She didn't care about her hair, her pajamas, or anything else. She just ran to him. Rumi froze as Naruto steadied himself, still glowing faintly from the cushion of air. For a moment neither of them moved. 5 years apart, 5 years of silence and distance, and now he was standing there in front of her, older, stronger hers. She broke first. Her bare feet slapped against the floor as she sprinted to him, pajamas and all. Naruto dropped his blades and caught her mid-leap, arms locking around her waist. The impact nearly bowled him back into the chair again, but he didn't care. He just crushed her against him, holding her like she might vanish if he let go. Rumi, he breathed, her name breaking in his chest like prayer. Her fingers tangled in his hair, dragging him down into a kiss that was desperate, trembling, and all-consuming. 5 years of letters unsent, calls missed, nights awake with nothing but memory, it all burned away in that single, fevered kiss. Naruto kissed her back with equal hunger, hands trembling at her back, pulling her closer, closer, until there was no space left between them. His storm, her patterns, all of it melted away under the fire of finally having each other again. Zoe squealed, clapping her hands over her eyes but peeking through her fingers. Mira groaned loudly from the couch. Gods, get a room already. But neither Naruto nor Rumi heard them. They only knew the warmth of each other's arms, the salt of tears between their lips, and the wordless vow carried in every breath, never again 5 years apart. Their lips crashed together again, harder this time, the kiss messy, desperate, too much and not enough all at once. Rumi's arms locked tight around his neck, dragging him down like she could make up for every night apart in a single moment. Naruto's hands framed her waist, then slid up her back, pulling her against him until her heartbeat pounded into his chest. The room blurred away. Pajamas, cereal bowls, even Myra's groans and Zoe's squeals, none of it mattered. Only the taste of her tears, the warmth of her mouth, the weight of her trembling body in his arms. Naruto tilted his head, deepening the kiss, his breath ragged against hers. She gasped into him, her fingers knotting tighter in his hair, holding him like he was air itself. 5 years, 5 long, brutal years fell away, leaving only the two of them, right here, right now. He broke away just long enough to whisper her name against her lips. Rumi. Her answer was another kiss, just as fierce, her voice shaking between them. Never leave me again. Naruto's grip trembled, his storm sparking faintly under his skin as if his soul itself was answering her plea. He kissed her again, until there was nothing left but fire and a desperate promise in their mouths. 5 years of waiting poured into every touch, every breath. They didn't stop. They couldn't. They were lost in each other, exactly where they had always belonged. Zoe and Mira whispered in awe about how different Naruto looked, but Rumi's ears barely caught the words. Her world had narrowed to him, the tall, broad-shouldered man framed in the doorway, his golden hair longer now, his presence heavier, like the storm itself had been woven into his bones. But when her eyes traced the lines of his face, the change didn't frighten her. Because there they were, the whisker scars, etched deep, unhealed. Proof of the boy she had first met, the boy who had bowed so shyly in the market and said, "Hello, my lady." The boy who had stolen her heart without even realizing it. Her chest ached with memory. 5 years of waiting. 5 years of watching stages blur and cities fly past her window, carrying her farther and farther from the boy who had once held her hand under starlight. She had smiled for fans, trained until her body gave out, sung until her voice broke, but every night when she closed her eyes, it was him she dreamed of. Him she missed. Him she loved. And now he was here, taller, stronger, storms burning beneath his skin, but still him. The same Naruto who tripped over chairs, who bowed too deeply, who never hesitated to see beauty in her even when she couldn't see it in herself. Her heart thundered as she clutched him, terrified he might vanish again, overjoyed that he hadn't. She pressed her cheek to the warmth of his whiskers, letting her tears slip free, and thought fiercely. I don't care how much the world changes you. You'll always be mine. My storm. My light. My love. And when his lips found hers desperate, 5 years' worth of longing poured into one kiss. Rumi felt the certainty settle deep in her soul. Whatever waited for them in the shadows, whatever storms would rise again, she would face it. Because Naruto had come back. Because Naruto still loved her. Mira, still wide-eyed from seeing him after so long, crossed her arms and smirked. So, Naruto, did you learn anything else during your big, mysterious 5-year training trip? Or did you just get taller and broodier? Naruto looked downright offended, his brows furrowing as if she'd insulted his entire lineage. Of course I learned something, he shot back, snapping his fingers with a sharp flick. The air shimmered, swirling tight, until a tiny fox of compressed wind burst into life on the couch beside them. It was small enough to fit in Rumi's lap, translucent like spun glass, its tails trailing like mist. The little kitsune tilted its head before leaping up and licking Rumi's cheek. She let out a startled giggle, cheeks flushing. The sensation was impossibly strange, soft like a cloud brushing her skin, cool as morning dew. She reached up to pet it, and the fox purred, dissolving into a breeze that tangled briefly in her hair. Mira rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Wow. 5 years of training and you came back with party tricks. Glad you put the world on hold for that. Zoe nearly choked on her cereal, laughing. Rumi just shook her head, still smiling, wiping the faint trace of moisture from her cheek. I liked it, she said softly, meeting Naruto's eyes. Naruto's grin returned, boyish and unguarded. See? At least someone appreciates me. The penthouse smelled faintly of coffee and sugary cereal, the kind of lazy morning comfort they hadn't had in months. Rumi curled against the corner of the couch with her bowl balanced carefully in her lap, still in her pajamas, her hair a little messy, her patterns faintly visible now that she wasn't bothering to hide them. Beside her, Naruto stretched out, broad shoulders taking up more than his share of the couch, one leg bouncing with restless energy. He didn't even pretend to reach for his own food, he just leaned in and stole another spoonful from Rumi's bowl. Seriously? She whispered, glaring at him, though her voice lacked any real bite. Naruto chewed with exaggerated slowness, lips quirking into that boyish grin she remembered from the market all those years ago. Still tastes better when it's yours. Rumi tried to scowl, but it melted into a soft laugh. She nudged him with her shoulder, and he nudged back, their giggles colliding. For 5 long years, she'd dreamed of moments like this. It wasn't the arena, or the battlefield, or the burden of their titles, it was just cereal on a couch, him beside her. From the kitchen, Zoe's groggy voice cut through. Ugh, stop being disgustingly cute. Some of us are trying to wake up without cavities. She was leaning against the counter, mug in hand, oversized t-shirt hanging off one shoulder. Right? Mira added, blowing on her coffee before taking a sip. Her tone was dry, but her eyes sparkled. 5 years apart and the first thing he does is steal your breakfast. Classy. Naruto leaned back, unfazed, and shot them both a cheeky grin. What can I say? I've had a lot of time to practice my priorities. He flicked his fingers, and the little kitsune of compressed wind popped into life again, scampering across the table. It bounded up Rumi's arm and licked her cheek, deuce-lick and cool. She laughed, swatting at the tiny spirit as it dissolved into mist. Zoe raised a brow. That's what you learned in 5 years? A serial thief with party tricks. Glad you spent half a decade perfecting that, Mira deadpanned, though her smirk betrayed her amusement. Naruto crossed his arms, pretending to pout. You guys are a tough crowd. I can level mountains now, but sure, let's focus on the cereal and the fox. Rumi reached for his hand under the blanket draped across their laps, giving it a quick squeeze. I like it, she said softly. Her words weren't for Mira or Zoe, they were for him, and the warmth in her voice made his cheeks go pink. For a while, the apartment was filled with nothing more than the clink of spoons and the hum of the city beyond the windows. It wasn't loud or flashy, but it was perfect, for friends, sunlight slanting in, laughter mixing with the taste of coffee and sugar. For the first time in years, Naruto felt like he was home. Naruto leaned back into the couch, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Like you and Sasuke aren't doing cute stuff, Mira. Remember that hot air balloon date? Mira nearly choked on her coffee, cheeks turning red. That, she sputtered, pointing at him. That was your idea? Naruto shrugged like it was obvious. Of course. I told Sasuke exactly what to do. Guy's brilliant with a sword, hopeless with romance. Zoe broke into a fit of laughter, kicking her legs against the coffee table. Oh my God, Mira, you're blushing. Mira tossed a pillow at her, scowling. Shut up, Zoe. Naruto wasn't done, though. He turned, eyes glinting mischievously as he pointed at the youngest hunter. And you don't think you're off the hook? I know about the fanfics. Zoe froze mid-laugh, her spoon clattering back into her cereal bowl. What? Naruto raised an eyebrow, savoring the moment. Good reads, by the way. Zoe's face went crimson, her hands flailing. How did you even find my account? Naruto tilted his head, grin widening. Who else is gonna beat Gar Lover? Definitely not Zoe XOXOX. Zoe buried her face in her hands, groaning. Oh my God. Kill me now. Mira was already doubled over, cackling, while Rumi pressed a hand over her mouth to stifle her own giggles. Even Naruto started laughing, loud and easy, the sound rolling through the penthouse until Zoe peeked through her fingers, glaring at him with watery eyes. You are never allowed to bring this up again, she muttered. Naruto leaned closer, dropping his voice into mock seriousness. No promises. Rumi finally lost it, laughing into his shoulder as the whole room dissolved into warmth and chaos. It was messy, loud, embarrassing, but it felt like family. Eventually Mira shoved Zoe off the couch with a groan. Alright, enough clowning around. We should actually get dressed before Bobby storms in here and lectures us. Zoe whined, dragging her feet toward her room, and Rumi trailed after them with one last look at Naruto that still carried 5 years' worth of longing. That left him alone in the massive penthouse. Naruto stretched, hands behind his head as he whistled low. The place was bigger than most compounds he'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled sunlight across marble floors, and sleek furniture gleamed like it had just been polished. He wandered past the living room into a hallway lined with framed photos, the girls at award shows, performing on stage, laughing with Celine. Every shot radiated joy and stardom, but what pulled him up short were the little moments tucked between them. One photo caught him Rumi at 16, holding a mic with nervous determination, Mira gripping her shoulder, Zoe making bunny ears behind her. Another showed all three asleep on the same couch, half-eaten ramen cups littered on the table. Naruto smiled softly, thumb brushing the glass frame. They've lived their own battles too. He stepped into the music room next, walls lined with gold records and instruments. His eyes drifted to a piano in the corner, covered in scribbled sheet music. Curious, he pressed a key, the note echoing through the empty air. For a heartbeat, it reminded him of training whirlpool water carrying him steady, storm lightning forcing him fast, but here it was calm, almost peaceful. Man, he muttered, shaking his head. They really made it. From one of the back rooms, Zoe's voice rang out, muffled but unmistakably teasing, Naruto, don't snoop through our stuff. Naruto grinned to himself, stepping away from the piano. Didn't touch anything, he called back, even as his eyes lingered on another frame. Rumi mid-laugh, the sun catching her hair. For the first time in years, he felt like he was home. Naruto wandered further down the hall, opening doors with the casual curiosity of someone who'd spent 5 years living out of inns and tents. One room stopped him dead. It wasn't a room, it was a world. The closet stretched longer than some of the training grounds he'd stayed in, a glowing expanse of shelves and racks. Rows upon rows of dresses, coats, and performance outfits shimmered under soft lights. Shoes lined the walls in colors and heights he didn't even know existed. Jewelry glittered behind glass cases like a treasure hoard. The scent of perfume and clean fabric hung in the air. Naruto's jaw dropped. What the hell, he muttered, stepping inside like he'd stumbled into some forbidden temple. He trailed his hand along one rack, fingertips brushing sequined fabric that probably cost more than his entire wardrobe. He turned a corner and blinked again. Each girl had her own section, labeled in gold script, Rumi, Mira, Zoe. Rumi's rack was elegant black dresses, stage gowns, neat jackets. Mira's was chaotic but stylish, flashes of bold color and daring cuts. Zoe's was stacked with comfy hoodies right beside glittering concert tops. Naruto squatted down in front of one shelf stacked with shoes and scratched his head. Why does Zoe need 20 pairs of sneakers that all look the same? And who even wears heels that tall? He eyed one pair of Mira's stilettos like they were weapons. Pretty sure these could kill a man. For a moment, he just stood there, overwhelmed. His entire life had fit into one backpack for years: 2 blades, a change of clothes, a few scrolls. This was another world entirely. He couldn't stop the laugh that escaped his throat. Hunter/X really are living like queens, he said softly, shaking his head. And then, his eyes landed on a familiar black dress tucked neatly in Rumi's section, the one he had bought her years ago. Carefully, almost reverently, he brushed the sleeve with his hand. His chest tightened. She kept it. Behind him, a voice called, faint and teasing, Naruto. You better not be lost in the closet. Naruto grinned, still staring at the dress. Yeah, I found it and I think it found me. The elevator chimed again. The doors slid open, and in marched Bobby, 2 phones balanced on his shoulders, clipboard under one arm, iced coffee in hand. He didn't even glance up at first, too busy ranting into his headset. No, Sharon, no, we can't book the Flaming Tigers. Insurance doesn't even cover that. And if the drones fall into the crowd again, I'm the one who gets sued. Then his eyes finally lifted. On his couch, a broad-shouldered blonde stranger with scars and whisker marks was casually eating grapes out of the fruit bowl. Bobby froze mid-step. His phone clattered to the floor. Who the hell are you, and why are you in my penthouse? Naruto swallowed the grape and stood, holding his hands up in peace. Name's Naruto. Bobby's jaw dropped. His clipboard slipped from his fingers. Naruto Namikaze. Yeah. Bobby's face turned crimson as every rumor, late-night talk, and half-sad smile from Rumi came crashing back. You're Naruto. The Naruto. The boy she wouldn't shut up about for 5 years. The one she kept writing sappy songs about and crying over on off nights. Her Naruto. Naruto blinked. I guess. Bobby's entire demeanor shifted in a snap. He set the coffee down, crossed his arms, and planted himself in front of the blonde like a bouncer. His eyes narrowed into slits. You listen to me, son, Bobby said in a low growl. That girl? She's family. My girls are my whole DMN job and my whole DMN life. And for 5 years, Rumi's been holding on to you like you were the only light in her sky. So if you think you can just stroll in here, eat my fruit, and break her heart. Bobby. Rumi came skidding in from the hall, hair still damp from brushing, cheeks pink with panic. She grabbed Naruto's hand, stepping in front of him. It's not like that. He's back, he's really back. Naruto squeezed her hand gently. I'm not going anywhere. Bobby's gaze flicked between them, taking in the way Rumi leaned into him, the way Naruto held her steady, no hesitation, no shame. Bobby groaned like an overworked dad and rubbed his temples. God help me. He is the real deal. Zoe snorted from behind her cereal bowl. Told you he was coming back. Mira smirked. Careful, Naruto. Bobby's more terrifying than half the demons we've fought. Bobby shot them a glare, then jabbed a finger at Naruto. Fine. But mark my words, if you hurt her, I'll sick the entire security team on you. And trust me, I've got their numbers on speed dial. Naruto grinned, entirely unbothered. Deal. For the first time, Bobby caught the way Rumi's eyes softened just looking at him, and the fight drained out of him. With a sigh, he muttered, "Goddamn kids. You'd better be worth the wait, Namikaze." Bobby didn't back down. He stepped closer until he was practically looming over Naruto, a whole head shorter but somehow carrying the weight of a mountain with sheer attitude. Clipboard forgotten, arms folded, he looked Naruto up and down like a drill sergeant appraising a rookie. Naruto stood tall, polite as ever, though a bead of sweat slid down his temple under that stare. Finally, Bobby grunted. Well, he's good-looking. I guess that's a plus. Rumi's face went nuclear red. She covered it with both hands, groaning, Bobby, like she could sink straight through the penthouse floor and vanish. Zoe burst into laughter, nearly choking on her juice. Mira smirked into her mug of tea, clearly enjoying every second. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, sheepish. Thanks. Bobby narrowed his eyes again, as if trying to decide whether Naruto's sheepishness was charming or suspicious. He leaned down so close Naruto could see his own reflection in Bobby's glasses. Don't thank me yet, kid. Looks fade. What matters is how you treat her. And I'll be watching. Rumi practically whined, dragging at Bobby's arm like she could physically pull him away. Stop it. You're embarrassing me. Bobby straightened, satisfied for now, and finally stepped back. Good. You should be embarrassed. Keeps you humble. He turned on his heel and stalked toward the kitchen, muttering something about needing more coffee before dealing with lovebirds in his house. Rumi slumped against Naruto's shoulder, mortified. Naruto just chuckled, leaning close enough for her alone to hear. Guess I passed round one. Her cheeks burned hotter, but she smiled despite herself. Bobby came back into the living room, coffee in hand, still radiating that dad mode energy. He looked at the three girls, then at Naruto, and finally sighed like he was already exhausted by whatever chaos was about to unfold. All right, he said, voice gruff but steady. You've got a week of rest before anything big kicks off. No press, no travel, no shows. But, he raised a finger before Zoe could cheer, you do have to hit the studio today. Holden wants to run through some vocal practice, make sure your stamina's still sharp after tour. Zoe groaned, Mira rolled her eyes, and Rumi sat up straighter. Can Naruto come? She asked quickly, almost too quickly. Bobby paused mid-sip, giving Naruto another long look like he was weighing the fate of the universe. He let the silence drag on just long enough for Rumi to fidget before finally nodding. Sure. He can come. But, his eyes flicked back to Naruto, sharp as a hawk, you don't distract them. They're professionals. Understood? Naruto, ever polite, gave a little bow of his head. Of course. I'll stay out of the way. Bobby grunted approval, though the way he muttered into his coffee, we'll see about that, didn't exactly hide his skepticism. Rumi smiled, reaching for Naruto's hand and squeezing it tight, relief flooding her chest. Then it settled. Zoe leaned back on the couch, grinning. This is gonna be fun. Our first practice back with a special audience. Mira smirked over her cup. Yeah. Let's see if Rumi can hit her notes with Loverboy watching. Rumi flushed scarlet, sputtering, Mira, as Naruto chuckled beside her. The practice hall hummed with energy, but Naruto wasn't sparring or training this time. He leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes fixed on the three girls who stood in the center with their mics. Hunter/X was running through their set, voices lifting and weaving together, harmonies sharp and clean. To Naruto, it was surreal. He'd spent 5 years fighting demons, storms, blades, and shadows, but this was a battle too. Rumi's voice wasn't just sound, it was a strike. Myra's sharp verses cut like steel, Zoe's rap cracked like thunder, and together the three of them built something alive, a shield made of rhythm and willpower. They weren't just idols. They were hunters. And they were winning their war with music. His gaze always drifted back to Rumi. Gods, she was appealing like this. Her braid falling across her shoulders, sweat shining at her temples, every note carrying her whole heart. He couldn't look away. 5 years ago, he'd thought he loved her. But now, seeing her like this, he knew it deeper than words. Bobby glanced over at him, maybe expecting him to be restless, fidgeting, or bored. Instead, Naruto tilted his head and asked quietly, how do you keep all the levels balanced? With 3 voices and their resonance too, it must be harder than it looks. Bobby blinked. Most people didn't even notice things like that. He grunted. Yeah, it's a juggling act. Every take's different. Naruto's eyes never left the girls. And when Rumi's voice breaks high like that, do you push the others down or raise her higher? Bobby studied him for a moment, suspicion giving way to something else. The kid wasn't just sucking up. He genuinely wanted to know. They talked between takes, Naruto careful not to distract the girls, asking about the soundboard, the mics, how Bobby kept them from burning out during long sets. You actually respect this, Bobby muttered at last, half to himself. Naruto shrugged, a little smile tugging at his lips. His gaze slid back to Rumi, who was laughing with Mira as Zoe tried to beatbox into the mic, of course. They're fighting a war. Just a different kind. And they're winning. For once, Bobby didn't have a sarcastic comeback. He just looked at the tall, broad-shouldered blonde who'd spent 5 years away, now watching Rumi like she was the only thing in the world, and grunted, maybe you're not so bad. When the girls finally called a break, Naruto was waiting with bottles of water. He handed Rumi hers first without a word. She caught his smile, her cheeks pinking, and her heart swelled. He wasn't just the boy who had bowed to her in a market and said hello, my lady. He was a man now stronger, sharper but still hers. Practice ran long, but Naruto wasn't the least bit restless. When Bobby called for a quick reset, speakers shifted, lights adjusted, cables dragged, Naruto stepped forward. You guys need help? He asked one of the techs, rolling up his sleeves. The man blinked, surprised. Sure, I guess. Just don't. Before he could finish, Naruto had already hefted a heavy amp onto his shoulder like it weighed nothing. He carried it across the stage with easy strength, setting it down exactly where the crew pointed. A few more runs like that, and suddenly half the equipment was moved in record time. The tech stared at him, wide-eyed. Naruto just grinned. What? It's easier than training weights. You should have seen my sensei's idea of a workout. For him, it was refreshing. No blades, no demons, no grueling drills that left him collapsing in the dirt. Just helping out, sweating with normal people, lending his strength because he wanted to. Every cable coiled, every light adjusted. He enjoyed it more than he thought he would. Bobby watched from the side, arms folded. He expected the kid to just stand there, puff up his chest, and bask in Rumi's glow. Instead, Naruto blended in like he'd always been part of the crew. Asking questions. Respecting their work. Carrying more than anyone else without complaint. By the time the girls finished their run-through, Naruto was laughing with the techs, wiping dust off his hands. Rumi came up behind him, curious, and found him crouched low, helping adjust a monitor. The sight made her heart ache. The boy she loved, the man he'd become, still humble enough to fit anywhere. Bobby exhaled through his nose, fighting a smirk. All right, he muttered under his breath. Maybe he really is as good as she says. When the rehearsal wrapped and Bobby finally called for a lunch break, Naruto dusted his hands and bowed lightly to the crew. Thanks for showing me how all this works, he said earnestly, voice carrying the weight of someone who meant it. You guys make the magic happen. The techs, usually hardened to pop stars and their entourages, just stared at him for a second. Then one of them chuckled. Man, you're not like the others. Respectful. Thanks for noticing what we do. Another nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah. Most people only see the lights, not the hands that hang them. Naruto smiled, warm and unguarded. Well, you kept me from frying myself with the cables, so I owe you. As the crew started packing up their gear, Naruto stretched and looked around at the group. Hey, anyone hungry? He asked, grinning as his stomach growled loud enough to answer for him. I can go grab food for everyone. What's good around here? The offer floored them. A star's boyfriend, one of the most famous faces from the hunter world, volunteering to run food like he was just another part of the crew. There was something disarming about it, something that drew them in further. One of the younger guys laughed. You're serious? You do a food run? Naruto tilted his head, playful. Why wouldn't I? You've been feeding me knowledge all morning, so I figure I should return the favor. The group exchanged glances, then started rattling off orders: noodles, dumplings, a ridiculous amount of fried chicken. Naruto jotted it all down with a grin, already mapping the streets in his head. As he jogged off toward the doors, Rumi watched him go, her heart swelling. He'd faced demons and storms, but here he was laughing with strangers, treating everyone like equals. That was the boy she'd fallen in love with. Bobby stood near her, arms folded, eyes following Naruto. His tone was dry, but his expression had softened. Kid's either crazy or he's the real deal. Rumi just smiled, certain of the answer. When Naruto returned, his arms were full of bags that smelled like heaven: fried chicken grease staining the paper, steam curling from cartons of noodles, and the unmistakable spice of kimchi and dumplings. He nudged the door open with his shoulder, grinning like he'd just conquered the world. DLVRY, he announced, plopping the bags down on the nearest table. The crew swarmed in, eyes wide. You actually did it, one laughed, fishing out chopsticks. Naruto shrugged, casual but proud. Told you I would. Hunters keep their promises. The smell filled the practice hall, and soon everyone was sitting on cables and crates, bowls in hand. Naruto passed out food like he'd done this 100 times, making sure no one was missed. He even slid a carton of noodles across the table to Bobby with a little grin. Got yours extra spicy? Guy at the stall said only the brave order it. Bobby raised a brow, smirking despite himself. Testing me, huh? Kid, you've got guts. Rumi sat beside Naruto, watching the whole thing unfold. It was surreal, seeing him fit so naturally into her world. He wasn't just watching her on stage anymore, or fighting demons in the shadows. He was here, laughing with her team, passing out dumplings, making the crew feel like family. When Naruto finally sat down with his own food, he leaned back and sighed happily. Man, I think I like this better than training sometimes. No swords, no demons. Just good food and good people. The techs chuckled, already warming to him more than they'd expected. Bobby eyed him again, but his expression had softened the kind of look a man gave when he decided someone might actually be good enough for his girls. Rumi nudged Naruto with her shoulder, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. You're dangerous, you know that. Winning over everyone this fast. Naruto just smirked, stealing one of her dumplings without asking. Guess it runs in the family. I already won you over, didn't I? Rumi rolled her eyes, cheeks pink, but her smile betrayed her. When the girls came back out, they were dressed in full stage outfits, sleek, sharp, and glittering under the rehearsal lights. Mira shot a playful wink, Zoe cracked her knuckles like it was a fight instead of practice, and Rumi just smiled, calm and steady in her place at center. The track started, and in an instant the three of them moved as one. Voices rose, strong and clear, filling the empty hall with a sound that felt far bigger than the space itself. Their choreography snapped into place, every step in rhythm, every turn precise. Naruto leaned back against a case of equipment, watching closely. The way they shifted from one stance to the next, balanced on timing and trust, it wasn't so different from hunters working side by side in the field. Different purpose, different battlefield, but the same kind of discipline. By the second chorus he caught himself smiling. Not just at Rumi, though she drew his eye with every note, but at all three of them. He hadn't expected to be this drawn in. When the final beat hit and the girls froze in formation, their breaths quick but controlled, Naruto gave a short clap. Not bad, he said with a smirk. All that training really shows. Zoe grinned, Mira tossed her hair, and Rumi just gave him a look that said his words meant more than he thought. When the mock concert ended, the stagehands and tech crew moved fast, coiling cables and lowering rigs with the kind of rhythm only practice could build. Naruto, still watching with quiet awe, stepped forward and grabbed for a stack of folding chairs. I can help clean up, he said, already shifting them into place. One of the tech guys blinked, then laughed. You really don't have to. Guests don't usually stick around for breakdowns. Naruto shrugged, casual. Doesn't bother me. You worked hard, least I can do is pitch in. That answer drew a few raised brows, but soon enough, a couple of them let him tag along. He carried things with ease, stacking, hauling, and moving equipment like it weighed nothing. More than once, a stagehand muttered, "DMN, he's strong," under their breath. By the time the worst of the mess was handled, one of the older techs waved him off with a chuckle. All right, enough. You already did more than half the heavy lifting. Go sit down, kid. We got the rest. Naruto gave them a respectful nod. Thanks for letting me help. They traded glances as he walked off, not quite sure what to make of him. Polite, humble, built like a tank, and apparently head over heels for Rumi. Something about him stuck, even if they couldn't put a finger on why. As the day wound down and the last of the equipment was tucked away, Naruto stepped forward. He gave Bobby a small bow, the gesture smooth and genuine. Thank you for letting me come today, sir, he said. It was different, but I really enjoyed learning how everything works. Bobby blinked at the bow, then gave a short laugh. You don't have to call me sir, kid. But you're welcome anytime. His voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there this morning. Then he crossed his arms, giving Naruto a long, measuring look, the kind of stare only a man who'd spent years keeping idols safe could pull off. He loomed just a little, as if testing him. Well, he's good looking, I'll give him that. That's a plus. Rumi made a sound somewhere between a squeak and a groan, burying her face in her hands as her ears turned crimson. Bobby. Naruto scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed but smiling. Guess that's better than the alternative. Bobby chuckled, finally clapping him on the shoulder. Alright, Romeo. You've got manners, you've got strength, and you're willing to haul chairs without whining. That's good enough for me. Rumi peeked out from behind her hands, still mortified, but Naruto only grinned at her, the kind of grin that said he'd endure 1,000 dad checks if it meant staying at her side. By the time they piled back into the penthouse, everyone was starving. Bobby had made sure dinner was waiting, and Naruto fell right in with the girls, cracking jokes between bites, teasing Zoe about eating faster than him, and laughing when Mira called him out for stealing food off Rumi's plate. For a moment, it felt like he'd always been part of their little world. When the plates were cleared and the city lights glowed against the windows, Naruto stood, brushing his hands on his pants. I should head out. It's late, and I don't want to intrude on your space. Rumi frowned. You're not intruding. Zoe nodded, already curling up against the couch cushions. Yeah, just crash here. We've got room. Naruto shook his head with that polite smile of his. I appreciate it, really, but I don't want to overstay. Mira had heard enough. With a sharp roll of her eyes, she grabbed him by the wrist and tugged. Oh, for crying out loud, sit down. She shoved him onto the couch between them, then flopped into her own seat. There. Problem solved. You're staying. Naruto blinked, caught completely off guard, then laughed. Guess I don't get a choice, huh? Nope, Zoe chirped, tossing him a pillow. Rumi settled beside him, cheeks pink but smiling softly. Soon the lights dimmed, the TV flickered to life, and the four of them melted into the cushions together. A movie played, but half the fun was the laughter, Mira's sarcastic commentary, Zoe's gasps, Naruto's quiet chuckles, and Rumi leaning close enough that her shoulder brushed his. By the time the credits rolled, they were all yawning, tangled in blankets and each other's company. And for the first time in 5 long years, Naruto felt at peace, not on the road, not on a battlefield, but here, surrounded by family. Eventually Mira stretched, yawning loud enough to make Zoe laugh. Okay, I'm done. My bed's calling me. Zoe hopped up right after her, hair a mess but still smiling. Same. Night, losers. She waved over her shoulder and disappeared down the hall with Mira, their giggles trailing behind them. That left Rumi and Naruto alone in the dim glow of the TV. The movie had ended, leaving only the soft hum of the city outside and the faint tick of the clock on the wall. Naruto leaned back into the couch cushions, arms crossed behind his head. Guess it's just us now. Rumi tucked her legs under herself, still close enough that her knee brushed his. Guess so. She hesitated, then smiled, a little shy but warm. It feels unreal, you know. Having you here again. Naruto turned his head toward her, his whiskered cheeks catching the soft light. Yeah, he admitted, quieter than before. 5 years of training, moving non-stop, this is the first time I've felt like I'm home again. That hit her harder than she expected. She lowered her eyes, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve. I missed you. Every day. Naruto didn't tease, didn't joke, he just reached over and brushed his fingers against hers until she took his hand. I missed you too, Rumi. Kept me going more times than I can count. Silence stretched, but it wasn't heavy. It was comfortable, filled with things they didn't need to say out loud. They talked a little longer, about nothing and everything, her concerts, his travels, the way Seoul looked at night compared to Konoha. And somewhere in the middle of her laughter, Rumi rested her head on his shoulder. Naruto shifted just enough to make it easier, their hands still linked. Neither of them moved again. By the time their breaths fell into rhythm, the city outside had gone quiet, and they were fast asleep curled together on the couch, exactly where they'd wanted to be for years. The morning light crept in through the penthouse windows, spilling across the living room in soft gold. Mira patted out first, hair mussed, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. She stopped when she saw the couch Naruto and Rumi curled up together, her head tucked under his chin, his arm draped protectively around her. Zoe stumbled out a moment later, yawning. "Ugh, I need coffee." She followed Mira's gaze and froze. Her mouth opened like she was about to squeal, but Mira quickly elbowed her in the side. "Don't wake them," Mira whispered, though there was the faintest smile tugging at her lips. Zoe pressed her hands together, eyes softening. "They look so happy." Mira crossed her arms, leaning against the doorway with that same quiet expression. "Yeah. Guess 5 years was worth the wait." Neither of them said anything else. They just stood there for a while, smiling softly at the sight of Rumi and Naruto finally at peace, still asleep in each other's arms. Naruto stirred first, blinking against the pale morning light. His arm was still draped around Rumi, her head tucked against his shoulder. When she shifted, they both leaned up at the same time only to knock foreheads with a solid bonk. "Ow," Rumi whispered, rubbing the spot. Naruto laughed softly, rubbing his own. "Guess we need to work on our coordination." Before either could say more, the smell of cereal and milk reached them. They turned toward the kitchen, where Mira and Zoe were already sitting at the counter in their pajamas, bowls in hand. The two girls exchanged a glance but didn't tease, just smiled softly at the sight of the pair still tangled from sleep. Naruto stretched as he stood, running a hand through his messy hair. "Morning," he said with an easy grin, trying not to feel embarrassed. "Morning," Zoe answered, sliding the cereal box toward him. "Hope you're not picky." Mira smirked into her spoon. "Cereal's basically our fuel. We could live off this stuff." Rumi followed Naruto to the counter, still blushing but smiling, too. She sat beside him, and for a moment it almost felt ordinary, like he'd always been there with them. The four of them ate together, sunlight spilling across the penthouse windows, laughter mixing with the clink of spoons. For the first time in years, Naruto felt like he was exactly where he belonged. After breakfast, Naruto stretched and said he needed to swing by Celine's house to change into something less wrinkled than travel clothes. Rumi offered to go with him, but he shook his head with a grin. "I'll be quick. You three can have your girl talk, I know you want to." The door clicked shut behind him, and almost immediately Zoe leaned forward on the counter, eyes sparkling. "Okay. We need to talk about that man." Rumi blinked. "What about him?" Mira arched an eyebrow. "Oh, come on, Rumi. The guy walks in after 5 years, bigger, taller, hair down to his shoulders, muscles for days, and the first thing he does is trip over a chair like a total dork. And somehow, instead of looking dumb, it just makes him, what's the word, Zoe?" "Adorable," Zoe answered without hesitation. "Like, stupidly adorable." Rumi felt her cheeks heating. "He hasn't changed that much. He's still Naruto. Polite, kind, a little clueless." She lowered her gaze, but her voice softened. "But yeah. He's different too. Stronger. Calmer. Like everything he went through made him more solid." Zoe sighed dramatically, flopping back on the couch. "Ugh, and he's so respectful. I swear, even Bobby likes him already. Do you know how hard that is?" Mira crossed her arms with a smirk. "Well, he better be respectful. You waited 5 years, Rumi. If he came back and acted like some JRK, you'd what?" Zoe cut in, grinning. Mira's eyes narrowed. "I'd knock him flat on his butt. Hunter or not." Rumi laughed, shaking her head, though her chest felt warm. She set her cereal bowl aside and whispered, almost to herself, "He's worth the wait." Both girls caught it and smiled. Neither teased her this time. Naruto walked back through the familiar streets, the city alive with color and noise around him. Neon lights buzzed, scooters zipped past, the smell of roasting chestnuts drifted from a vendor's cart, but none of it touched him. His chest felt lighter with every step, his smile impossible to hide. 5 years of storms, training, and distance, and finally, he was here again. With his girl. He pictured Rumi's laugh, the way her eyes had filled with tears when she first saw him at the door, how her arms had clung to him like she never meant to let go. That memory carried him forward, steadier than any stance he had ever trained, stronger than lightning coursing through his veins. For the first time in years, Naruto wasn't thinking about survival, or demons, or power. He was thinking about home, and home was her. The chamber deep beneath the earth was still thick with the weight of voices. But when Pain's gaze swept the table again, the tone shifted, colder, heavier. "We have spoken of the boy," Pain said, "but he is not alone. He is not the only one who carries fragments of chaos." Conan's expression did not move, but her eyes gleamed sharp as glass. "The Jinchuriki," she said flatly. "Not beasts," Kakuzu corrected, his voice like torn cloth. "Not vessels. Not myths. Just children cursed with shards of chaos resonance. Each piece is power, and power is profit." Names flickered like shadows in the chamber. Gaara, whose sand crushed like a desert storm. Fu, her laughter carrying the restless wind. Yujito, whose fire burned even in her sleep. Killer Bee, whose voice thundered and shattered silence. Han, Rashi, Utakata, Yagura, each a name, each a fragment, each marked by the same poison thread. All of them, Haydn spat, his grin bld slick. "We take their resonance, and we drink it. They are steps," Orochimaru said, his tone almost tender. "Each fragment brings us closer. A lattice forming. A mosaic. But only one boy carries the soul itself, the Miruk. The core. Without it, the fragments are just sparks. With it, his smile stretched thin. A son reborn. Pain's rings fixed him like nails. Then we will not begin with him." Kisame tilted his head, amused. "You want me to wait?" The boy's resonance smells stronger than anything alive. Holding back will be irritating. "You will wait," Pain said. "The others must be gathered first. Their resonance taken, their fragments aligned. Only then can the Miruk be claimed without collapse. Only then does his storm become ours." Conan nodded once. "If you move too soon, the soul shatters. And nothing is gained." Pain's hand spread across the table. His voice carried finality. "Orochimaru. Kisame. You will stalk the boy. Do not kill him. Do not take him. You will watch, and when the time comes, you will strike. Until then, the others are priority. We will weave the fragments one by one. And when the net is complete." The silence trembled, heavy as stone. "We will harvest the Miruk. And remake the world." The cloaks stirred, heads bowing or grinning or glinting with hunger. Each saw a different future, art in flame, puppets eternal, ledgers of power, rivers of BLD. But in the center of it all, one thing united them: 10 figures, 10 shadows, 10 predators with their eyes fixed on the same prey. And far above, Naruto walked in sunlight, unaware that the soul within him was no longer just his own, it was a prize. The chamber felt colder than stone should allow. 10 shadows ringed the table, their breaths shallow but their hunger sharp. Pain's decree still echoed through the hollow walls: the Jinchuriki first, the Miruk last. Conan's voice cut through the quiet, calm as a knife dipped in frost. "It is logical. Fragments first. If the Miruk is taken prematurely, the resonance shatters. We gain nothing but ashes." Her face was unreadable, but her words carried finality. She was not following Pain out of love, her belief was steel, forged sharper than mercy. Kakuzu leaned forward, threads twitching at his jaw. Fragments, souls, whole children, it makes no difference. Every piece we take raises the market. Nations will pay fortunes to keep their demons hidden or to see others strppd bear. The boy is a treasure, yes, but the profit lies in the hunt itself. His eyes gleamed gold with calculation. Haydn threw back his head and laughed, the sound like broken glass. Profit? Order. You're all boring. Give me the screams. The begging. The tearing open of souls while they thrash. That's all I want. You bring me their fragments, I'll paint the ground with what's left. His grin was too wide, too eager. Deidara flicked his wrist, clay fingers twitching. BLD's dull. Art is what matters. These Jinchuriki temporary vessels, fleeting sparks. Perfect explosions waiting to happen. When their resonance ruptures in my hand His eye shone feverishly. That will be true beauty. Sasori barely stirred. His voice was sandpaper. Art dies. Flesh rots. But resonance? That can be preserved. Puppets that breathe, weapons that move long after their owners are dust. I will harvest them carefully. No waste. Kisame chuckled, his teeth bared in the dark. You lot think too much. Fragments or not, they're strong. Stronger than the trash I've torn apart these past years. Hunters, warriors, Jinchuriki, it doesn't matter. If I get to cut them down, I'm happy. His hand flexed on the hilt of his blade, eager for the clash. Orochimaru's tongue slid across his lips, eyes gleaming with sadistic delight. Oh, but strength isn't enough. The resonance fascinates me. To take it apart, stitch it back, see what screams emerge in the process. Gaara's sand, Yujito's flame, Utakata's bubbles, all little experiments. And when we finally reach the Miruk, his smile stretched too far. I'll peel him layer by layer until even his soul forgets its name. Itachi spoke last, his words low, dangerous. Do not underestimate them. They are not prey, not in the way you imagine. Each fragment has teeth. I have seen what children can do when cornered. Underestimate them, and you will fall. His eyes glowed scarlet in the dark, not with warmth, but with the quiet promise of death. For a moment, silence held the chamber again. Pain's hand curled into a fist. You will not fail. Every fragment is ours. And when the net is complete, his gaze swept across them, Rinnegan burning, the Miruk will fall. His storm will be broken. His soul will be remade. And with it, the world. Konan bowed her head in perfect obedience. Kakuzu's fingers twitched like coins spilling from a purse. Haydn grinned until his gums bled. Deidara trembled with excitement. Sasori's eyes glimmered with the thought of eternal puppets. Kisame's laughter rumbled low. Orochimaru licked his teeth like a starving serpent. Itachi said nothing, but the silence around him was more terrifying than their noise. 10 predators. 10 hungers. And above them, unaware, Naruto still walked with hope in his chest while the Miruk within him had already been marked. The throne room reeked of ash. GWMA's roar still echoed as the latest failure turned to soot at his feet. The gathered demons trembled, heads bowed. Pathetic, GWMA spat, flames curling from his jaw. Do you imbeciles not see? Once the hunters forge the golden Han moon, we will starve. My fire will gutter out, and your patterns will fade into dust. A soft beepa melody cut through the silence. Purple light shimmered at the shrine steps as Jinnu descended, his smile coy, his voice sharp as a blade. 4 other Oni flanked him, their movements sly and mocking. There once was a mighty king, Jinnu sang, who fed on every soul he pleased. But now, he starves. GWMA's eyes blazed. I let you keep that voice, Jinnu. And you dare mock me with it? I don't mock, Jinnu said smoothly. I offer a path forward. You've been chasing hunters head-on, where they're strongest. Let me lead us elsewhere. Strike at their fans the devotion that feeds the Han moon itself. Corrupt it, twist it, drain it dry. He snapped his fingers. The oni at his back shifted, their shapes smooth and alluring, hair dyed in neon shades. Eyes glowing like stage lights, faces too perfect. A demon boy band. Some of the court gasped. GWMA barked a laugh, low and humorless. You would have me dethroned with glitter and false smiles. Tell me, Jinnu, why should I trust you? Other demons plot in shadows even now. The Akatsuki think themselves clever, hungering for the chaos resonance. They whisper of overthrowing me, of breaking the old order. And you, what makes you different? Jinnu's smile didn't falter. His voice dropped low. Because I don't care about order. I care about forgetting. Every memory of defeat, every face of a hunter I've slain that still haunts me, I want them gone. Wiped away. Erase the weight of centuries, and I will give you what you need. Fans emptied, hunters starved, the Han moon broken before it turns gold. The hall was silent. GWI leaned forward on his throne, fire crawling across his claws. You want oblivion. I want freedom, Jinnu corrected softly. Let the Akatsuki chase power. Let them dream of thrones. I only dream of forgetting. For a long moment, only the sound of crackling fire filled the chamber. Then GWI growled, do it. Break their faith. Feed me their souls. But if you fail, Jinnu, you'll burn slow. Jinnu bowed low, eyes flashing with quiet triumph. And above them all, unspoken but heavy, loomed the truth, two factions circled the same prey. The Akatsuki, cold and ruthless. GWMA's demons, hungry and chaotic. And at the center Naruto Namikaze, the boy whose resonance could decide it all. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 9. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.